Praise be Jesus Christ. I received a request to give a sort of reflection on Jephthah that we just got in our readings today from Judges chapter 11, a very mysterious incident where one of the commanders and judges of Israel, in order to restore the kingdom, goes to war with all those who are vying with Israel at the time. And he makes the promise to God that whoever comes out of the door of his house, he will offer up as a burnt offering if they gain victory. And he's coming back, they gain victory, and lo and behold, his own daughter runs out of that front door. And he rends his garments and gives her 2 months to mourn the loss of her life, and then offers her up as a living sacrifice. That should raise questions in anyone's mind reading on how can we really balance that with the gospel, with our understanding of who God is. Well, it's actually a negative example for us. In seminary, we had this idea of, offering someone up as a victim soul. So there's that idea that you can become a victim soul. You can offer yourself up, your sufferings in reparation for sin, for the crime of abortion, for restoration of marriage, for someone else coming back to the faith and leaving a state of grave sin, those sorts of things. But we used to always have a running joke that instead of offering ourselves, we would offer up someone else as our victim soul. So if I had a big test on Friday, I would offer a good holy seminarian up to receive much suffering that night so that I could receive the graces to pass my test on Friday. So there's always a running joke with us, and it was funny because it was absurd, because you don't offer someone else up as a living sacrifice, as a victim soul. We only offer ourselves. And that was the problem with Jephthah, is that he shows us what can happen when we don't know the voice of God. He offered the wrong sacrifice. And that is a temptation that can plague every single human life, especially the further we get from God and the more chaotic a time is. And the Judges is a time of great chaos in scriptures. In order to get control of the situation, that's when we end up offering to God insane sacrifices or promises that maybe he's not asking us to do, but we do it out of desperation, right? To find a semblance of peace or get control or try to manipulate the will of God to get what we want. St. Bernard of Clairvaux, he's famous for saying that anyone who takes himself for his own spiritual director is the disciple of a fool. And it's also been said that anyone who doesn't have a proper spiritual director has the devil himself as their leader. Now that's just touching into the roots of the problem, that oftentimes we don't know what God is asking of us, and we need an external guide to help us discern the voice of God. And I can tell you, my own spiritual director, in his vocation to care for my soul, I'd say that the majority of all he has to do is just tell me no. Most of the time, that's his job, is telling me no. You're asking the wrong question. You're trying to offer the wrong sacrifice. And what it really comes down to, that he'll ask over and over again, is he'll say, "Are you trying to offer this, or is God asking this of you? Are you offering this, or is God asking this of you?" And that was the problem with Jephthah, is that he said, "I will give you this if you do this for me," rather than, "Lord, what do you want of me so that we might be restored? What is the sacrifice, the offering that I can give you for the salvation of Israel?" And we know that God would never ask for the sacrifice of another human being, because that was the very thing that he condemned over and over again in the practices of the other religions, and telling Israel to never imitate that. In Leviticus and Deuteronomy, it says anyone who offers one of their own in a living sacrifice, especially a child, is to be cut off from Israel. It's a grave sin. So he was offering the wrong sacrifice because he didn't know the voice of God. So it's actually a warning for us. And the psalm was really beautiful today in the Mass, because it goes into say, "I will offer myself as a sacrifice to the Lord." Let me actually just grab that up. "Here I am, Lord, I come to do your will." Like, that's the essence of who Christ was. Christ was the one whose whole body was prepared to do the will of his Father. And one thing that we see in the Blessed Mother, in Jesus Christ himself, is that they don't offer someone else. They offer themselves. They make their body a living offering, a living gift and sacrifice to the Lord. And that is what our vocation is, essentially, as Christians. In the Mass, Christ does not say, "This is your body given up to my Father." It's always, "This is my body." Jesus offers his body to inspire us to offer ourselves to him. But the big question is that, what sacrifice, Lord, are you asking of me? And the two key ways to determine this, because we're always asking, what is the proper sacrifice that God is asking me to give? If it's coming from within, like flowing water, very peaceful and gentle, this is someone in the state of grace, seeking intimacy with God and the salvation of their soul. The way they know that God is asking something of them is it will give them life and joy and peace, even though it is difficult. Whether it be fasting, a sense of mortification, less sleep, God will fill your heart with grace and joy in the midst of it. The other way you know you're being asked to offer a sacrifice is out of obedience. So even if, I'm being asked to do something and I don't want to do it, if it's coming from the church, from the hierarchy, or from my own superior, then it doesn't really matter how I feel, unless they're asking me to do something sinful, which is almost never the case, very seldom the case. So if it gives me peace, I can usually trust that God might be asking me to give that sacrifice. But it's very important to always check with the priest and the spiritual director and asking, is this coming from the Lord? So that we're preserved from making the mistake of Jephthah, of offering the wrong sacrifice, because there's some sacrifices we can make of our own accord that can never be taken back. Right? And so they protect us from our own selves in that way. Hope that offers some clarity. God bless you. We'll talk to you next time.